These Samsung numbers need a little bit of reading into because there's good and there's bad in there, but they have posted a record $8.5 billion in the second quarter operating profit, despite a notable slowdown in its mobile business. Let's get out to Seoul. Terry Kang's going to set this story up for us. Hello there.
Thank you very much for that, Steve. Yes, let's take a look at its share price first. Samsung Electronics shares off by more than 1% at this point, digesting good and bad with just about half an hour to go till the market close here, despite its record earnings because of the worries over its mobile division that already took off about 14% since early June of this year. Its mobile division's profits did jump over 50%, but it did drop by 3.5% on quarter. Now, Samsung said this time, it's interesting in that it's in its earnings statement that its smartphone market is expected to continue growing, but at a slower pace, and that is starting in the quarter that we are in now, the third quarter of this year. And that's actually when JP Morgan and Morgan Stanley said earlier this month that they see smaller component orders for its Galaxy smartphones. And also for the earnings overall moving forward, remember it does have chips, panels, and consumer electronics businesses too, and they did pretty well, especially with memory chips, premium displays, and air conditioners this time. And I thought it was pretty interesting, though, that Samsung said this morning that the components business contribution to its overall profits will gradually increase. So all in all, so far so good, but questions about what now dampening investor sentiment here. Steve, back to you in
That's
London.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed for that analysis. Right, let's get to Markellos Diorinos, who is the head of engagement management at Upstream as well. What did you think of these Samsung figures?
As Cherry already said, it's really interesting. You know, you see that they're growing quarter over quarter, year over year, in all but their mobile division, right? And if you look at the mobile division quarter over quarter, we're down 3%, which is quite significant in a growing market for Samsung. And it's, if you ask Samsung why that is, they'll probably tell you it's mostly because of marketing expense. Which begs the question, why does Samsung need to spend so much in order to sell those Galaxies, right?
I'll tell you why, and it's my opinion, so it doesn't mean much. But I think it's because these phones are getting very amicable now, regardless of whose technology is whose and which patent litigation is going through in which part of the world. I pick up a Sony phone, or an HTC phone, or a Samsung phone, or even, dare I say it, an iPhone. And actually, the functionality is very similar now, and it's becoming more commoditized, and hence the price is going down.
I think you're halfway right, and let me tell you how we see things, and it's always better than normal. Part of it is what you're saying, it's commoditized, but it's not. Why? Because if it were completely commoditized, people would pick up any Android phone, right?
Yeah.
But there is this very significant brand behind Samsung and Galaxy. People go and buy Galaxies. Why? Because they do offer a much better user experience. Androids are not the same, and this is actually one of the problems that Google has, that you get all these Android phones, they're essentially the same, completely different user experience. Every operator is going to go in there and put his thing on top of his Android.
Just one more for me, though. But I mean, look, I think all of these phones are fantastic now. That's my premise is that I know that there's the iPhone adherents out there who adore them, and I can see that. They're great, apart from I couldn't get reception when I tried to have the iPhone 5, so I had to send it back. But I do live in the middle of nowhere. But the point is, I think they're all great now. So hence, as a consumer who's not particularly leading from the front on buying new purchases, I'm a late adopter. I can get on these. I can do my banking. I can do great internet, all my emails. I can do lovely photos. I can do everything I could possibly think that I want to do on any of these handsets. I'm not an early adopter because I want that latest flick of the eye technology, which is scrolling a page down. I don't care about stuff like that. They're really good stuff in these phones now, aren't they?
No.
Go on.
And let me explain. It's true what you say if you're comparing the iPhone 5 and the Samsung S4 or any one of the Galaxy family, right? Most of them are pretty good phones. We're an emerging market, in emerging markets very heavily. So we get to see what's down market. Yeah. And if you look some of the phones there, and it's not necessarily only Chinese handsets, right? I'm talking about LG. I have a couple of handsets myself that I use. It's a frustrating experience to be on those phones. They're slow, they're baggy, they're gonna, you know, you're gonna try to do something and then pop, you're out because of who knows what. So it's not the same level of experience. And that's why Samsung has managed to have a premium brand with with Galaxies, right? They're the only ones making money out of Android. There's a reason for that.
But will they continue to do so if you look at the pricing, the competition out there? The average selling price has been coming down the high end of the market. So what is this going to do to margins? We already saw in Apple's numbers this week the margins been retreating. So expectations for me that Samsung's margin is going to remain flat or decline just slightly could be underestimating the levels of declines that might be coming for this particular market.
The margins, well, you know, Samsung, in contrast, Apple is really focusing on the high end, and there are very high margins there, and they're doing quite well at that.
But so their margins are declining, though.
Apple's?
Apple's margins declining.
Yeah, but why are Apple's margins declining? Because they're now moving down market, and their down market move right now is the iPhone 4 and the 4S. There is a rumored phone, it has been rumored for at least 2 years, and maybe they come with something down market, but essentially their play now is that they got good results of the iPhone 5, they got great results because of the iPhone 4, and that's something that's not to be overlooked, right? If you go and look on the other side with Samsung, and we see Samsung along in the emerging markets. We help operators monetize, and they ask us all about Samsung, because this is the #1 brand in preference in most of the emerging markets. That's #1. And second, they have a full lineup. If you look at Samsung, even in the UK, you can select between something like 30 different models of different Android phones. So they have a full lineup, and this is why their margins are squeezed. But they keep innovating on the high end, which is what's important. And that innovation goes and trickles downstream. So there's something good for everyone in there.
My question is there something in there for the investor? Because since April, the shares are down, what, 12% or so. The smartphone division represents something like 2/3 of the profit of this business. They've become 70%. They've become incredibly dependent on the success of the phone, and the market seems a little underwhelmed. Are we concerned that on a medium to longer term investment, this is a story that's going to disappoint because smartphone sales are rolling over, not just for them, but also for Apple?
It's interesting.
Is it a one-trick pony?
I don't think so. And let me tell you my thinking. The market tends to punish companies for not meeting their expectations, right? But it's still a record quarter for Samsung, and one should not be overlooking at that. At the same time, we look at the market, we look at the emerging segment very closely at upstream, and we see that there is a ton of potential there. There's going to be both the penetration of smartphones is low, and there's all that more money to be made because of an ecosystem. And these people need more than just phones, right? They need a platform play, they need to be able to use this. This is probably their primary and only device on getting on the internet. So there is a ton of innovation that is to be expected in those areas. And I think Samsung is very well positioned across the board. It has an open platform. It can be one of the leading powers in the
Okay. Markellos, thanks very much for coming in. Good to see you.
It was a pleasure.
Markellos Diorinos, Head of Engagement Management for Upstream. Amazon shares dipped after hours after it posted an unexpected $7 million loss.